Hey guys, Tripl-L here, and now it's time to talk Shokugeki No Soma chapter 255. And guys, I'm just gonna put it out there, I am so excited for this chapter. Like, oh man, I'm so into it. Oh, I'm so excited to just start talking about this, because like in this one we get a good confirmation and a good flat out painting of what Central is, what Azami's going for, and also the purpose of the God tongue and all things. So I definitely want to get in there and destroy Azami's ideology, because I still am coming at this from a very cynical point of view, man. So before we get into that, I do just want to give the thanks to people who piped up or just, you know, said something in the comments last week. The comments, man, for the guys that were writing a lot there, I respect each and every one of your comments. Like, those were some pretty good stuff to go through and read. I was really into it. Guys, thank you so much for those comments. Thank you so much. And I especially thank you for the guys who were guessing at how Soma and Erina were going to win. I am still going to be kind of pessimistic when it comes to their odds here. But, you know, that's just me. That's just my personal flavor. You guys, if you've been watching the videos, you understand just how I usually see things. So if you have anything that you want to add in this video as well, go for it. I welcome it wholeheartedly. I'm totally into it. Anyway, this chapter. So I'm just going to tell you from now, the judging portion with Rindo does not have my attention as much as the first half of the chapter does. So we're just going to go talk about that very quickly. One of the highlights for the judging portion for me personally was the return of the classic foodgasm scene, that with the horny ant and the butterfly. I don't know, of these two people in this image, I really like the ant way more. I was totally into it. I was kind of hoping that it would be Azami there, but not getting Azami, whatever, not a big deal. Otherwise, with this first little bit, or with this, with the last half, I don't really care too much for the judging. I mean, it's just kind of it's wanking on the chain, like, you know, Rindo's gonna do well. That's Rindo. She's gonna do well. She's gonna throw in something that's pretty cool with the ants. I know that in the comments, people were saying that the problem with Rindo and Tsukasa is gonna be harmony, and I really don't know, man, because what I'm thinking ultimately is that Rindo and Tsukasa know each other too well to say that a lack of harmony between the dishes isn't going to work, especially when Rindo has proven that she can understand the struggles that Tsukasa is going through, and Rindo herself is more flexible as well. So that's going to be the stance that I maintain on this, and I haven't seen anything that disproves that stance, whereas with Soma and Erina, they're largely untested. So, you know, it's going to be a bit of a question of how things are going to work out. And again, touching on the Erina thing, we don't really know Erina's style. Like, the only advantage that Soma has is that maybe he learned something from Erina when she was doing the lessons, but we know Soma largely was being just a slacker with it. But that is going to be one of the critical points, and I do think, like, the chances that the victory comes as a result of Soma and Erina's better harmony, the chances for that type of victory, I think, are high if there is going to be a victory for their side. Anyway, let's get into like the part that I really enjoy. So the chapter really picked up for me. It wasn't in the first couple of pages, because the first couple of pages were still kind of boring, because that's the part where like the man is courting the woman, or for a better comparison, this is the part of courtship. This is where like Azami is trying to get Tsukasa to drop his guard with his very carefully laden bombs. And you know, so like that first bit isn't that great. Around page 7 on the manga stream translation, that's where I really started to like it, because like Azami goes back to his freaking art metaphor, and man, that's where things really like ramped up for me, because like I'm thinking, all right, Azami's about to go into what he's talking about when it comes to Central. And what it ultimately ends up being is, yes, it's again the appreciation. And when I say appreciation, I don't mean like, you know, just being thankful for your food. I mean appreciation as in being able to like find the value, or being able to point out the value. Like when you say appreciate in terms of a good, you're saying how much that good is worth. So it's that kind of appreciation, appreciating what goes into a dish. That is made so clear here that I'm glad that we got it. And for those first few pages, the part that I really like is where Azami says, no matter the creativity and ingenuity, the at times overly ambitious experiments you may incorporate into their food, people will always react the same, because they don't know better. They don't have the education for it. So Azami's whole thing is like, people aren't going to appreciate your food properly. You should make your food for people who actually will appreciate it. And again, the distinction of appreciation here is important. Appreciating the work that goes into it versus appreciating the food in general. Azami wants their talents and their efforts to be valued, not the end result. So that's the critical thing going in here with Azami. And if this is the critical thing, then look, unfortunately, I think this is still a tantrum, right? Because in this chapter as well, you have the other opposing viewpoint. The opposing viewpoint being Rindo. Rindo says all that matters is that they enjoy it. And truthfully, I think Rindo, her general outlook on this is the one that's closer to, I think, what should be correct, right? Because Azami makes a very faulty comparison here. He compares food to art. And there is a very big distinction between food and art that just, I think, destroys the comparison. That being that making food for people, making food with the, you know, the intent for someone to eat it, bro, you're in the service industry. Your role is to make food. You signed up for that. Your role is to make food for people to fill their bellies and have a good time with it. I'm sorry. That's what you signed up for. All right. And it's like, well, you can't compare it to art because art isn't really a service industry. When you're making a painting, you're not really making that for the sake of like accomplishing someone's basic need, right? Because, well, you could have a client who specifically wants a painting done. All right, okay, will that client accept it as a masterpiece or whatever? Maybe not. But you're in that case, okay, maybe that's when art becomes a service industry. But like then Azami points out the masterpieces like Picasso and all that. And unfortunately, my knowledge of art history is very bad. I've never done an art history class, so guys, take it with a grain of salt. But when you consider that, those masterpieces, as far as I'm aware, they're in a museum for people to gawk at, right? I don't think those masterpieces were made for a specific person. A lot of times, like the paintings have a message to deliver, but like beyond that, can you really compare it to food? The way I see it, the paintings themselves are not ephemeral. Food is ephemeral. Food, you put it in your belly and it goes. Food, you leave it out, it goes bad. It's a very instantaneous thing. Art can stand the test of time and be a message about the times where it came from, right? Comparing the two doesn't work because art, one piece of art can be repeatedly enjoyed over time. One piece of food cannot be. That food has to be eaten right when it's made. Otherwise, you're gonna like struggle having it be of value at all. Food loses its value. Art, you could question whether or not it has value depending on what side you're coming in from, but whatever value art starts with, it will only gain value over time or just stay at its current value. And for the art that actually does gain value over time, that's the art that is the one that captures a political message, or not political message, but captures a message from the times that it originated in, or captures a message about whatever topic that the artist was going after, right? So I don't think the comparison works well because we have two very different kind of products of an art form, that being paintings that can last the test of time, or paintings that are not ephemeral, and food that is fundamentally ephemeral in its nature. So I don't think the comparison works there. And then you have the service industry, making food for other people. Right there, that is a service industry. Your point is to just make the food. If someone doesn't appreciate your food, sorry buddy, that's why you go to competitions and have it judged by actual judges. If you want to get your accolades for being an amazing cook, you go to the people who can accredit you properly. And you know, like, which is what Totsuki does all the time. So when Azami says that Tsukasa should only make food for people who can actually like care about it, like, man, I don't know what kind of life you want to live. Sure, if you like pick up a really rich guy, the guy's gonna pay you as his personal chef, and maybe this guy knows what you're going through every time you make a food. But at the same time, you look at other industries. Let's say you're in an engineering firm. Your client comes in, they have this thing they want to do. What are you going to do if you run into something that you don't know how to make in that particular moment, right? Your client, if he were an engineer, he would make the thing by himself most likely. Or if they had the resources, they would make it. They don't know how hard whatever project they're giving you is going to be. It's your role as the engineer to sit down with the client, consult them, and ask them, you know, how to flesh out the features and try to sneak in something in there that can make things more doable for you. You cannot just say, guy, do you know how hard this is? I can't, you know, you cannot at any point criticize how hard the project's going to be. Why? Because you're the freaking engineer. They're paying you, you got to make the project. It's your job to make it possible. So when it comes to this, like, idea of appreciation, again, Azami is a wounded animal in this regard. He's seen what went wrong with Jochiro. He probably has a good idea of it. And because of that, what he's going after is justifiable from the emotional point of view. But when you consider it in the grand scheme of things, again, you being put into the service industry, you making the choice to be a chef and making food for people, that to some degree, you gotta kind of put away your ego here. You gotta kind of put away that desire to be properly judged. Because if you go after that kind of pedigree, in our world, you're gonna run out of jobs pretty quickly, unless you get really lucky. So again, when I see this aspect of Central, it's like, I see it as something that's very immature. Just because in other industries, I'm sorry, but you have to work. It doesn't matter whether or not your client is going to properly appreciate the difficulty that you went through. It doesn't matter if your client's going to appreciate all the trial and error you went through to get to the final product. It doesn't matter how much effort, how much sleepless nights you put in to try and get that final product. Your client won't care about the process. They're only going to care about the final product. That's true of almost all service industries. So I don't see why we should allow Azami to have his little tantrum here and not properly criticize it. The question here is whether or not the markets would work. And since this is a manga, well, the markets could go the way that Azami wants it. There could be a realistic future for chefs who want to do this. And guys, believe me, I really want to break Azami on this one, but for this one, I need real world examples. And unfortunately for this one, I don't have it. I want to bring up something, and the closest thing I can think of is like the phenomena of starving artists. But even then, it'd be so hard to, well, at least from where I am right now thinking about it, I can't apply it properly to the situation. So I am kind of stuck on this. But again, it's a very immature outlook, I believe. And just hearing the way Azami's talking about it, you know, that's where I ultimately end up. It would be great if people were more educated about everything. It would be excellent. But at some point you have to acknowledge that the world as it is right now, and most likely as it's going to be for the next couple of decades, appreciation for craft, it's going to go down. Just because people can't educate themselves on every single thing that they're going to interact with. Mind you, we still have to appreciate Azami in the regard that the ideal he's striving for is ultimately an ideal that helps chefs. It prevents what happened to Saiba. So that in of itself is a very, very kind ideal, but it just overlooks the present reality of the world. And that's why I will take the stance of I'm more or less against it. Like I would want the ideal to actually work out. Man, if there was a time where people could actually appreciate the work that you put into something and not just the final product, you know, if those were the majority of people, I'd be totally into it. That'd be a much better world, I think, for a lot of the people who worked the hard jobs. But in this case, I can't agree with Azami wanting special treatment for something as inconsequential as cooking. Now, the next part of the philosophy that Azami is introducing here, it comes around page 11, and this is where I got super excited. Like, if I had an excitement boner from the first bit, this part is where I was like, whoa, okay. So the next bit is page 11, and it starts off with the world of cuisine. One unfamiliar with it might think it's an endless wilderness. And this is cool because this is like the first metaphor we got in Shokugeki No Soma. The idea that kitchen is this giant wasteland with like places for you to go and places for you to explore. And you know, it's cool that he's tying it back here. But what Azami is postulating here is that it's not a wasteland, that there is a destination and that you can head to it. And so here's where we get to the kinder aspects of Central. That being that when Azami says, anyone can, without a worry in their hearts, nonchalantly, peacefully, and unsufferingly follow the shortest path to that goal. That is a pretty interesting idea. Now, mind you, that what Azami is saying here, like this is the first bit. Well, as a viewer or reader, do you agree that all cooking has one destination? Because that's what Azami's kind of saying here. There is a clear correct goal, meaning that there is a singular goal, or a goal that is the same across all cuisines, that you will eventually reach a pinnacle, right? So with this metaphor, what Azami is saying, if you were to take this seriously, is that he's throwing in the metaphor of a pyramid. When it comes to symbology, a pyramid was supposed to be the idea that no matter where you start, you always end up at the same point. So when you look at the sides of a pyramid, you have let's say a square pyramid, you have the 4 sides. You could start anywhere in that area and you would still reach the same goal. As you progress further and further in your progress, you would get to the pinnacle, which is the pinnacle that someone on the opposite side of you could also reach. So that was what the symbology of the pyramid was initially about back in Egyptian times, right? So that's Egyptian symbology. It was a marker of saying that human potential has a clear goal. And you know, this is like also in a time where like the idea of deity was a bit more prevalent. So you know, the next thing would be like, wait, why am I getting into that? No, the point is that's the kind of metaphor that Azami's saying here. Everything starts from a different place, but it still has the possibility of ending up in the same spot. So depending on how you want to interpret that, you could still say, well, no, cuisine seems like it's a kind of thing that has multiple different areas that it could branch off into. In which case, you'd be arguing for more like a star-like thing, where if you begin in the center, you can get to the extremes of a star, and those are technically different goals, but they're equivalent to each other. So, you know, there's different ways you can argue that, but the big point here, though, is the ease by which people can do this. Like, especially the line, anyone can without a worry in their heart go to that shortest path to the goal. And the person who would be there to course correct for the chefs would be Irina. Irina can say what dish is good. But now, here's where we like start hitting those next problems. First, let's acknowledge, I think, the ideal of allowing people to get to where they are going in the fastest way possible. I think that's an excellent ideal. I think that's a beautiful ideal. I think, yeah, I think that would be nice for people. Although you could then argue, well, the struggle is what makes a person stronger. And yes, but still, it's like, it's an issue of it's an issue of being efficient. And so this is another gray area that you could like go into, whether or not it's better for people to struggle and fail and then succeed, or if it's better for people to give their tries and then have a person come in, properly judge it, and optimize the path by which the person should improve. Both of those methods, depending on what you're doing in life, can apply. In a corporate setting, in the real world working setting, reaching your goal with the shortest path is the best. It's best for you to go and talk to people who know what they're doing so that you can learn how to do things faster. That is the better ideal, especially with limited lifespans that people have. That is the better ideal. When it comes to experimentation and struggling, that also has its own unique applications. And if I was to think right now, the people who would go through this path, it's the people who are the first in their field of studies. It's the frontiersmen, the people like Paracelsus who investigated using minerals in medicine, right? So it's the people who are the trailblazers are the ones that are more likely to struggle until they find what works, whereas the people who have the shortest path to the goal should be the people that came after them. That's when I think the two can be applied properly. So going into Irina now, and this is the next problem with Irina being the god tongue and being the course corrector, is that Irina is very much like AI. The way that AI works is that you have to train it. And people don't really know about this unless you like start developing AI, but say for facial recognition, the way that an AI learns to recognize faces, depending on what kind of AI you're using, you have to feed it a giant sample size of a face. The AI will eventually be able to make connections and be able to notice patterns, but you have to train the pattern in. You have to give it like 2,000 samples of a face for it to start noticing, okay, these two things here, these two sockets right above the nose are eyes. People have eyes. Okay, I understand. This is a feature I should look for. So that's how AI gets trained. You feed it patterns until it figures out the patterns. On Irina's side, the one who is training her is Azami, and unfortunately, Azami has a bias. So Irina's testing is unfortunately non-ideal because it's only maybe acknowledging an aspect that Azami programmed into her. So if we were to go back to the pyramid metaphor, this would be the equivalent of saying that Irina only knows one side of the pyramid. For the other 3 sides of the pyramid, she would not be able to give proper judgment. She would just divert everyone to one side of the pyramid. And in the pyramid metaphor, you could see why that doesn't work. And we know that this is true because Irina failed to properly accredit Soma. Soma made something that was outside of her realm of understanding, and because of that she penalized it, whereas by the virtue of its flavor it was overwhelming. So this is going to be like the big problem that Azami is going to face, is that there is still an aspect of cuisine that he has not properly accounted for in his philosophy, and seeing how that's going to break down is, I think, one of the things that's going to be explored when we have Soma's judgment coming. That said, it's all pretty cool stuff. I'm pretty excited, and I'm like, the recent chapters of Soma, like when it comes to Central, I really love talking about Central because this is a philosophy that has those nice areas and has those flawed areas. Like what Azami did with Totsuki with teaching kids the right way to cook, I think that's great for the nameless peons that are in the stands right now. But for characters like Soma, so pretty much for characters that have a name, that method doesn't work as well, because Soma and his generation are the trailblazers. So it goes back to like who deserves to struggle and fail versus who deserves to get the short path, or not who deserves, but who's more suited to whichever method. So here we have it. That's my thoughts on this chapter, guys. I'm so sorry for the long thing, but I get really excited with these chapters. I really love these chapters. I love finding out what Azami wants to do. I have a few last notes. Let me just think about them real quick. Oh, right, I remember. So when I read the comments for this chapter, I saw that people are saying, oh, they made the mistake of going first, so they've sealed their fate. So, you know, the whole Soma thing, the person that goes last tends to win. So maybe we're gonna see that coming out here, but we end off the chapter with Tsukasa unleashing his specialty, so we'll have to see what happens. This is gonna be really interesting to watch unfold. I hope. I'm excited, guys. I'm just excited for it. So guys, let me know what you think down below. Apologies for the longer video, 22 minutes. That's a lot of time, but this is just a full-on philosophical discussion. So I'm very curious as to what you think. Let me know down below, and until next time, I hope you have a great day.